All right, we had a little technical issue. We're back live. Once again, I'm Robert White, CEO and founder of Any Length, and I'm with my staff, Sam Hummel and Greg Bryan. Sam Hummel is our retreat director out at the Any Length retreat, and Greg is our marketing and missions coordinator for all of Any Length. Please dial in and ask us any questions. We're here to just kind of give feedback of what we're doing here that's a little bit different than any other place that we think in the nation. So we had some good feedback. Last week I did a video on how the Any Length name came about, and we got some good feedback on a message. We won't blast their anonymity, but they gave us some good questions to consider, and I'll turn it over to Sam.
Good morning, everybody. What a great opportunity here it is to do this morning with y'all. I'm honored that Robert chose this venue out here. I'm very proud of the program and the facility that we have, the Any Length Retreat. And I look forward to fielding any of the questions that y'all might have, and I'll answer to the best of my ability based on my experience. Robert handed me these questions, so there's no prepping for this. We said a little prayer before we got started. I like to do things that way. It pushes my reliance upon the Creator, and so I'm going to try to answer these questions. I'm not going to try, I'm going to answer them. A couple of these questions, I'll pass them over to Greg, and I'll let him field a couple. And this is open forum, fellas. If I start rambling or I get off topic, y'all feel free to share some of your experience, strength, and hope as well. These two men got some good things rocking and rolling in their lives, and it's always a collective conscience when we do things around here. So let's get into the first question here. It says, I was wondering if there are different levels of alcoholics, such as social drinking, drinking alone, etc. Different levels of alcoholics. The literature I read and that bases the manner of life that I've embarked upon, it talks about different kinds of drinkers out there. Not so much, there is some text in there that labels different types of alcoholics, but really what I like to base my actions on is whether I'm alcoholic or not. And I don't worry too much about what kind of level I'm at. I'm either drinking alcoholically or I'm not, is basically the way I see things, you know. And what that looks like, what does drinking alcoholically look like? It's when I don't want to drink, I drink anyway, right? You know, when I have every reason not to use drugs, I use drugs anyway. And I base that's one half of it, right? And then the other half is that once I start to drink or use, something physical has got to interrupt it, right? Going to jail, passing out, things along this line. But running out of money, that really never was a big issue because we were always very resourceful, and I had to make some amends for some stuff that I stole in order to feed my alcoholism and drug addiction. So money was never really an issue as to why my drug use and alcoholism would be interrupted. So that's the two qualifying questions that I use to base an alcoholic. Have I lost the power of choice, and have I lost the power of control? Do I drink and use when I have every reason not to? And then once I start, I can't stop. And that's kind of the best answer that I can come to as far as, are there different types, different levels? Y'all have anything y'all want to weigh in on that before I go to the next question? Or
Yeah, so, and Sam touched on this in the literature. I just want to say, Threefold Wellness just texted us and said, man, Greg is a stud. Thank you, Mark Crandall. He is a stud. He's our stud. But anyway, so the levels, and just kind of to reiterate what Sam was talking about, it's not really the level. It's not, I used to consider myself not an alcoholic because I wasn't homeless and drinking out of a brown bag. But that really doesn't matter. I've met alcoholics that were homeless, and I've met alcoholics that were millionaires and billionaires. It does not discriminate. Same thing with drug addicts. So it talks about 3 types of drinkers in our text, and this is the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous that we use out here at the Any Length Retreat, 12-step recovery. And so it talks about a hard drinker, a moderate drinker, and then the real alcoholic. And there's several things. It's like, can I stop whenever I want to? And that's kind of how, I look at people in my family and they're able to, drink a half a glass of wine or, whatever. And I don't really understand what that is, but they're able to just put it down and not really be affected anymore after that. They can choose when they drink and how much they drink. Then the hard drinker, it talks about that, if they're given a sufficient reason to stop. So warning of a doctor, maybe their girlfriend or family members or, job is like, hey, you need to slow down on what you're doing. And so they're able to stop or even moderate. And then the real alcoholic, once they start, they lose all control. So that's kind of like the questions that, Sam was just talking about is like, once I start, can I stop? And can I stay stopped, right? Because every alcoholic that I've came into contact with, I'm always able to stop, but can I stay stopped? And then once I start, do I lose all control? So those are some good measuring sticks. And one other one that I always like to think about is, have you ever wondered if you're an alcoholic or a drug addict? And if that's been the case, then you probably are. You got anything?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of going off of what these guys said here, that, so alcoholism has nothing to do with how much money I make. It has nothing to do with what kind of car I drive, how many times I go to work, how many times I don't go to work, what my family looks like. Like, that's not at all like what we're talking about here. Those are things outside of us, and a lot of us are really good at playing these roles to hide our alcoholism. So some of us might have the job, might have the good income, might have the family set up straight. Could be the opposite. In my case, could be completely homeless and lost everything. Alcoholism has all to do with when I start drinking, I can't stop, or when when I try to stop, I can't stay stopped, or I can't control the amounts that I'm putting in. So that's kind of what just going off what these guys said right here, that's kind of what it looks like. And so if you're looking at an alcoholic who, a family member or a loved one, you got to steer clear of looking at like what the life might look like. That's not at all kind of, of course, getting sober, getting into recovery does produce happiness and a wealth beyond measure. But, we're looking here at, alcoholism as the alcoholic can't stop putting it in our bodies.
And Shannon Perry Graves said, thank you for doing this. You're very welcome. Wow, we're very excited to do this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, I have some great insight, fellas. We'll move on to question number 2. Y'all ready?
That's right.
Okay. If I didn't realize I would have pumped up 2 this morning had I didn't know. Greg was going to come in all swole.
One got a quick, just a bicep and front shoulder pump just for the camera.
That's right.
That's all I do.
Right on, man. That's what I'm talking about. We absolutely insist on having fun,
Right.
enjoying life. Question number 2. And these are some great questions, man. What point should someone receive help for their alcohol addiction, or alcoholism or addiction, right? That's a great question, because most of the time, people who need the help, where their alcoholism has gotten to a point and their drug addiction has gotten to a point, they can't recognize it. It generally takes someone else to point that out to them. There's a couple of different questions that I posed to the men that come through here that were posed to me along my journey, and one of them being, how do I know what I don't know? It's impossible. I can't, right? I have to have some people around me to point that stuff out to me. and I've been graced with some beautiful people that are more than willing to do that. And then the other question is when I'm running the show and I'm self-will run riot, I usually can't see that, and it takes someone else to point that out to me. And when an alcoholic or a drug addict who is active in their addiction, as their life is spiraling out of control and continuing to go down, most of the time we can't see that. You know, my own personal journey, I didn't see that. I didn't see as the people closest to me, the ones that I say I love, kept going away and going away and going away, and then the people that were my friends, you know, they started disappearing, and even the people I was drinking and using with started to disappear. I still couldn't see that. Even when I was sitting in my house by myself in the dark doing the things I swore I'd never do, I couldn't see that. So it's a good thing to have some people around your loved ones that are going to be willing to point that stuff out to them and hold them to a level of accountability that they're not willing to hold themselves to, or that they can't hold themselves to. And so it's evident to most of the people around the alcoholic addict way before it's evident to him. And we just have to, you know, that's why we have the fine people out there that are doing interventions, and the recovery coach or the recovery escorts and that kind of stuff. You know, these people that are doing a wonderful job out there helping the families of the people who are affected identify some of these behaviorisms and mannerisms that are identified as alcoholic and drug addict characteristics. And so, but for the most part, like the big book says, that most alcoholics and dope addicts have to be pretty badly mangled before we're ready to do anything about it. And so our efforts here at Any Length is to try to raise that up, right? So that the men and the women out there that are still suffering don't have to go to the depths that some of us went to. And that's our concerted effort out here, is to try to raise that up. And just always remember, if you are, like Robert said, that's a great question. If you think you might be alcoholic, you think you might be a drug addict, well, that's a pretty good indication, because most of your social users and your people that have the power of choice control, they don't have that thought, right? So if you're having those thoughts, if you're wondering, if your life is spiraling out of control, just remember the first rule of being in a hole: quit digging.
Yeah.
Right. So with that, I'll turn it over to you fellas.
Yeah, I mean, my answer is now. If you're thinking about it, just do it. I mean, of course, it's a lot easier said than done, but no better time than right now.
Yeah, and the question again is, what point should someone receive help for their alcohol addiction? And, you know, it depends on what type of help you're talking about. So if you're talking about, you know, going to detox, going to treatment, or going to a non-clinical modality like what we have over here at Any Length Retreat, then, you know, it depends on the point of how many ideas you've tried to stop and stay stopped. And I know I had to go through many ideas, whether that was stopping for, you know, a loved one, whether it was getting in trouble with the law and being motivated by fear, or even if it was just with my family, them telling me, hey, you know, you need some help on this. And I would say, I promise you, you know, and after going on a bender for, you know, a week, or whether it was a month or a weekend, I said to them, and I looked them dead in the face, and I meant this with every existence of my being, that I was going to stop and never do this again. And next day, next week, whichever experience, I've had some different ones, I was doing it again. And then I remember at a point in my life where I promised myself that I would never do this again, and I kept breaking those promises. So, you know, we're going to be available, obviously, through this question and answer. So if you find yourself with that type of question, or, you know, trying those ideas to stop, don't hesitate to dial in or give us a phone call. We'd be glad to help and kind of help you answer those questions.
Go ahead. Start the next one.
start the next
All
one.
right.
We went to there. Now we're here.
Okay. All right. What if a family member or loved one is an alcoholic, drug addict, but refuses help? Yeah, that's a good one too. So with my experience, being a recovered drug addict and alcoholic, the best thing a family member could do would be to seek out help themselves. Call a treatment professional of some sort, whether that be one of us, whether that be some of the guys that Sam mentioned earlier. So one of the things that that I practice when I'm talking to these families is allowing the man to build a relationship with us. The reason being is so when I was like pushed into a corner, there was no way that I was going to just go. Like what I had to do is, for me, I had to come up with this idea that I needed help on my own. And I say that with a little bit of grace there, that there were some circumstances that were set in place that allowed me to do that. And one of those was the relationships I built with other men in recovery, some of which my family reached out to and allowed me to build those relationships with. So when that time came, of course, family was on board. My family wanted me to go, but I had a relationship built in place to go ahead and allow me to go get the help that I needed. And so I made that phone call. If they refuse help, the best thing to do, there's a partner book that talks about this, and like a lot of that looks like not coming to the alcoholic with shame or with guilt, with blaming, allowing. I don't want to say allowing them to do their damage, because that's not necessarily true, but allowing them to give them the space that they need and look for the resources yourself, so you can set up a plan for when that time does come, when we can go ahead and make that move.
That's very good. Yeah, and something else is like, maybe they won't ever want help. What do you do then? If they refuse help, then can you get well? Can you recover? Can the family get better, even if the alcoholic and addict loved one never does stop? And the answer to that is yes. There's programs called Al-Anon, Alateen. There's other different fellowships for family members to get well, regardless of how their loved one is doing in that particular moment. And we actually encourage that. Maybe you should go look up, if you're in a certain city, Al-Anon meetings, and go check that out. And in those fellowships and in those meetings, there'll be people there that have gone through the same experience. They can offer their experience, strength, and hope to you of how, maybe their story is their family member entered into the rooms of recovery and they recovered, and they have a happy, joyous life now. Obviously, it's not always perfect, but and then there's the stories where their family members never got well, and they passed away, but yet they're still living a happy, joyous life because they found their own recovery. And the thing about alcoholism and drug addiction is it is a family disease, because it doesn't just affect the person that has the ailment. So that's what I'd like to encourage you is, if you have someone that refuses help, then I would suggest you wait until they're done on a spree when they're really hopeless, and maybe approach them then, or get them into contact with individuals like us, or even reach out to Alcoholics Anonymous and ask them to maybe do a 12-step call on your loved one. That's always the best option, because you don't have to get sober in a treatment center or even a facility like Any Length Retreat. Maybe you should start trying with, just going to Alcoholics Anonymous first. That may work for you. So it's not, there's not just one avenue to get recovery. But once again, if they continue to refuse help, maybe, set some boundaries, set some healthy guidelines for yourself and that loved one, and we'd be glad to assist in that as well. What advice would you give? I think we gave some good advice. And going back to, the different levels of alcoholics, social drinking, drinking alone, what point should someone receive help for their alcohol addiction? Just kind of varies on that. And, kind of what we do over at Any Length is our main job is we don't get anyone sober or keep anyone sober, but we challenge them to look at themselves. And we ask them some certain questions that will hopefully make them uncomfortable so that they can look inside themselves for the true answer to their problems. And be around other individuals that are like-minded, that are hopefully seeking recovery with that same desperation as a drowning man. But there's no right answer to this. But basically what we do is we just put them in that position, give them that opportunity if they are alcoholic or if they are drug addict, that they can seek recovery and create a foundation in their recovery for the rest of their life, so that they don't have to keep going in this revolving door, back to detox, back to treatment. That's what we try to prevent, but we don't know what the end result is going to be. So we just make it the best possible opportunity for them to get that attraction that we provide on a daily basis at Any Length. Got anything else?
Yeah, I just want to just follow up, finish up on that, on the last question that we were talking about. And these men, I don't need to add very much, but they did a great job. Whether or not your loved one gets the help that they so desperately need, you've got to get help for yourself. You've got to gain a greater understanding of what it is you're up against so that you can kind of understand what he's up against. And Robert, I'm so grateful that Robert brought it up. Reach out to the 12-step fellowships out there. There are other fellowships out there than just Alcoholics Anonymous. You've got Cocaine Anonymous, you've got Crystal Meth Anonymous, you got Narcotics Anonymous, you got Drug Addicts Anonymous. These fellowships are there to help you. And reach out to them. They can give you some direction as well. They can hook you up with the sister fellowships that are there for the loved ones of the addict and the alcoholic. And that's very important. It's called tough love. I have some personal relationships myself that right now are active in their addiction and their alcoholism, and I got to let them have their experience with it. I have to let them write their story, basically. And I just stay in a position that when that call comes in, that I can be of real help to them. And enabling them is no longer real help for me anyway. So I just wanted to add that on there. These guys did a pretty good job of it, but absolutely good questions.
Hey, Cindy Kuykendall, thank you for sharing our video. We appreciate that. We got a puppy dog in here.
Greg's better half.
That's right.
Yeah, I kind of want to touch one more thing on that too. So with my experience, so I've been in and out of the rooms, in and out of treatment since I was 16. And my mother, who loved me, I mean, she raised me, So I was raised by a single mother. My mother thought she could do things for me. So there was a lot of enabling, looking back on it, and what enabling looked like was a lot of every time I got myself into a situation, I'm going to come rescue you. So that was a pretty consistent thing. Also, too, it was believing my lies, even though she knew it was a lie. So I say that to say that we tried treatment over and over and over and over and over again. I said we tried because it was a family deal. Until this last time. My mother reached out to some people, and they gave her the advice that I think was being given here, which was, for her, she had to take care of herself. And so she did. And so when that call came through and I was like, Mom, I need you to rescue me, it wasn't, okay, I'll be right there. It was, here are some numbers. You go ahead and make that phone call. And I'll tell you what, so at that moment, I know that was very difficult for her to do as a mother, because to say that she's powerless or helpless or can't help her son is a pretty big statement. That was hard for me to hear, because what do you mean? You've always been there. Now you're not here anymore. But I'll tell you what that did for me in the long run was that it really made me take ownership of my life. And so when I was put in that hot seat, what am I gonna choose to do? And I did go get that help. It gave me an ownership over my life today. I can tell you that today, because of those decisions and even talking to my mom, she said that was one of the hardest things she ever had to do. She said she couldn't have done it without support. She couldn't have done it without healthy relationships. She couldn't have done it without the support of a 12-step fellowship that she chooses to go to, a support group, if you will. And what that did for me is somehow I recovered, man. I decided, I applied what was I listened and I followed some direction, and I'm grateful that I did it. Now I have a beautiful relationship with my mom today. So going back to that question, when it comes to you as the family member and having an addict or an alcoholic who's close to you, by taking care of yourself, you give him or her permission to do the same. For the cycle then ends.
That's good. Yeah, and that kind of just brought up, as you talked about what your family did for you. In 2010, I went to another treatment center. This was the fourth treatment center that I'd gotten to go to since I was 17 or 18 years old. And at that point, my family, I was getting out of that treatment center, and I decided I want to go to this sober living facility that had a pool and a weight room and pretty much no structure at all. And I called my mom, excited with the news that I was going to go to this treatment center, or this sober living house, and she was like, no, we figured out that you're going to go to this sober house. And so I hung up the phone, and then I called back and was like, all right, do I really have to go to this place? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. And she was like, well, that's fine. You have your car. You can stay in it. And I was like, this was the first time that my family had gotten on the same page and was not going to negotiate with my disease of addiction. And I'm not saying that has to happen immediately. It took several years for my family to get to that point, because they tried every option. And I tried every experience that I could manage, or every idea that I had, to try to combat this disease of alcoholism and addiction. But go on with the story. So I hung up the phone again, and I called some other family members, and they said, no, we can't help you. You've got to figure this out on your own. We've tried everything that we can do. So at that point, they drew a line that I'm so grateful for. And I didn't end up staying sober after that treatment center. But I realized that if I was going to do this, that I would have to, figure this out. Not on my own. I never figured it out on my own, but I found some men in recovery whenever I had that desire to stop. And I was laid out with a plan of action, and have, remained sober ever since I willingly, honestly, and open-mindedly followed that program of action. So it looks different, again, for every family on how this is going to happen. So I would just suggest counseling with others and really, reaching out to those 12-step fellowships, to start. Like, you don't have to pay any money to do this. Now, we have, treatment centers have services, detox centers have services, and we have services that obviously you can pay for if you get to that point where you're not able to just stop by going to 12-step fellowships. But in the end, even when you graduate any length retreat or go into our sober living, or if you go to another treatment, what we found to work is you're going to end up going back to these 12-step fellowships if you want that permanent recovery, at least in our experience. So that's what we offer, is we want to push you back to having that life that you can, we don't want you here forever. So you can have that freedom in your life. So anything else? We got any other questions? We had some.
I don't know. I guess for the person suffering out there, man, the family member, the addict, the alcoholic, man, know that there is help out there. Know that there are people who are willing to help. Know that just because whatever's clouding your mind that tells you that you can't get help or that it's not possible for you, move away from that line and ask for it. Go out there, call somebody. Call us. If it's not specifically what we do, we know somebody who does it. The hardest part is making that initial phone call. Once that's in, allow yourself to be taken by that current. I'll tell you this: no circumstance is large enough or big enough, or I guess creates more consequences that like something like this can't help. Like as a group, like we're pretty powerful, and I'm not just talking about any length, but I'm talking about people who in recovery, people who help people in recovery, people who lead people to recovery. So just don't lose hope. Don't lose hope.
Anything else?
I think you got her.
Awesome. Well, I just want to tell everyone who tuned in, we really appreciate you tuning in.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be doing this again sometime soon. And we just hope everyone has a beautiful day and there is a solution.
Please, if you have any questions or any comments or concerns, please direct message us. We will answer them as soon as we get them. Pick up the phone again if you need anything from us. And thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
Awesome.